That plane had big problems the day before it crashed.
This is a new airplane. There may have been some design flaw in the MAX.
We are responsible for our airplanes. We are responsible.
Every 3 hours, like clockwork, a brand new Boeing 737 MAX rolled off the production line in Renton, Washington. Each aircraft represented the pinnacle of American engineering, a symbol of aviation excellence, a testament to Boeing's century-old legacy of innovation and safety. Until one day, everything stopped. In parking lots across the world, nearly 400 of the most advanced commercial aircraft ever built stood silent. Their engines covered, their wheels chalked, their futures uncertain. Each passing day cost Boeing $1 million, just to keep these mechanical masterpieces in storage. But the real cost? That was measured in lives. Over a century, Boeing had been America's aviation pioneer. From helping win World War II to revolutionizing commercial flight, they weren't just building planes, they were making history. By 2010, their 737 was the most successful commercial aircraft ever built. Every 5 seconds, somewhere in the world, a 737 was either taking off or landing. Then came the announcement that would change everything. Airbus, Boeing's European rival, unveiled their A320neo, promising something that would send shockwaves through the industry: 15% better fuel efficiency. In an aviation world where fuel costs could make or break airlines, this wasn't just a new product. It was an existential threat. The Seattle Times would later call it a game-changing moment. American Airlines, which had been flying Boeing planes since the 1940s, was now threatening to switch their entire fleet to Airbus. The message to Boeing was crystal clear: evolve or die. Boeing faced a critical choice: spend years developing a new aircraft from scratch, or modify their existing 737 design. The safe choice versus the quick fix. The right way versus the fast way. Time was running out. Boeing executives had watched their rival steal the spotlight, and now they were watching their biggest customers slip away. They made their decision. They would modify the 737, a process they believed could be completed in just 90 days. The modification seemed straightforward enough. Install larger, more fuel-efficient engines to match Airbus's efficiency. But these new engines were too big for the 737's traditional underwing placement. Boeing's solution was to mount them higher and further forward on the wings. This change created an unexpected problem. The new engine placement could cause the plane's nose to pitch up dangerously during certain flight conditions. Boeing's answer was a piece of software called MCAS, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. It would automatically push the nose down if it detected a potential stall. But then came 3 decisions that would later prove catastrophic. First, to save airlines money on pilot training, Boeing didn't tell pilots about MCAS. Second, they made certain safety features optional. And third, perhaps most crucially, they designed MCAS to rely on input from just one sensor.
In Indonesia, where all 189 people on board the Lion Air jet that crashed into the sea this morning are likely dead.
The brand new plane had 189 passengers on board.
That plane had big problems the day before it crashed.
The morning of October 29, 2018, began like any other in Jakarta, Indonesia. Lion Air Flight 610 took off under clear skies with an experienced crew at the controls. 13 minutes later, it plunged into the Java Sea, taking 189 lives with it. The investigation would reveal a chilling truth. A single faulty sensor had triggered the MCAS system, forcing the plane's nose down 26 times during those terrifying final minutes. The pilots, never trained on the system's existence, fought a battle they didn't even know they were fighting. Boeing's initial response focused on pilot error and maintenance issues. But American pilots were already raising alarms. One pilot's report to NASA's Aviation Safety Database painted a disturbing picture, calling the flight manual inadequate and the training dangerously insufficient. Internal messages later exposed the depth of concern within Boeing itself. Engineers had warned about rushed decisions. Test pilots had questioned the system's safety. But in the race to compete with Airbus, these voices went unheard.
FAA is under serious pressure to ground this plane if there's the slightest hint of a fatal flaw.
Ethiopian Airlines flight that killed 157 people and led to the grounding of Boeing 737 MAX planes all around the world.
This is a new airplane. There may have been some design flaw in the MAX. that led to, in conjunction with pilot error, one of these mishaps. If that's true, it'll be a real black eye for Boeing.
Developing right now, it is believed all 157 people on board an Ethiopian flight were killed in a crash shortly after takeoff.
Just as Boeing was trying to contain the fallout from the Lion Air crash, the unthinkable happened again. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, another 737 MAX, crashed minutes after takeoff from Addis Ababa. The loss of another 157 lives would trigger a global response unlike anything in aviation history. Within hours of the second crash, aviation authorities around the world began taking action. China moved first, grounding their entire MAX fleet. The European Union followed shortly after. Nation after nation closed their airspace to the 737 MAX. Finally, on March 13th, the United States made the unprecedented decision to ground Boeing's flagship aircraft. The impact rippled through the aviation industry like a shockwave. Boeing's stock plummeted, erasing nearly half its market value. Airlines scrambled to restructure their schedules, with over 500,000 passengers affected in the first month alone. The daily cost to Boeing was staggering. Storage fees, compensation payments, and lost orders mounted into the billions. As Boeing's production lines fell silent, their rival Airbus seized the moment. Airlines began canceling their MAX orders and switching to the A320neo. In total, 850 orders were canceled, equivalent to 8 years of production. The balance of power in commercial aviation had shifted dramatically in a matter of months. Facing the greatest crisis in its 103-year history, Boeing finally began to chart a new course. The company's leadership underwent a dramatic shakeup, with CEO Dennis Muilenburg stepping down. His replacement, David Calhoun, promised a complete overhaul of Boeing's safety culture and decision-making processes. Inside Boeing's engineering facilities, teams worked around the clock to redesign the MCAS system from the ground up. The new version would draw data from 2 sensors instead of 1. Pilots would have greater ability to override the system. Most importantly, every pilot would receive comprehensive training on the system's operation and potential failure modes. The price tag for these changes was unprecedented in aviation history. Airlines required compensation totaling $8.6 billion. Production costs soared by another $6.3 billion. Legal settlements added $2.5 billion more. Industry analysts noted that Boeing wasn't just paying in dollars. They were paying in trust, aviation's most precious currency. Airlines demanded more than just technical fixes. Southwest Airlines CEO captured the industry's sentiment perfectly when he noted that trust takes years to build, but only seconds to lose. Boeing would need to prove not just that they could fix the MAX, but that they had fixed themselves.
Boeing's own culture is more blameworthy for installing a faulty system that resulted in too many deaths and could have caused more.
Those pilots never had a chance. These loved ones never had a chance. They were in flying coffins.
346 people died because of a faulty control system, the MCAS system, that Boeing knew was going to cause a crash at some point.
I would walk before I was to get on a 737 MAX.
We are responsible for our airplanes. We are responsible. We are sorry, deeply and truly sorry.
The Boeing 737 MAX crisis revealed fundamental truths about business, safety, and human nature. Through countless investigations, hearings, and reports, 3 critical lessons emerged. First, when faced with fierce competition, the temptation to take shortcuts becomes nearly irresistible. Boeing's rush to match Airbus led them down a path that ultimately cost more in lives and dollars than developing a new aircraft would have. Second, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Boeing had transformed from an engineering-focused company where safety was paramount to one where financial performance took center stage. Former engineers testified to Congress about a dramatic shift in priorities, from building the safest possible aircraft to meeting aggressive production schedules. Third, in times of crisis, transparency isn't just ethical, it's essential. Boeing's defensive stance and slow response damaged their reputation far more than immediate honesty would have. Crisis management experts now use the 737 MAX case as a textbook example of how not to handle a corporate emergency. Today, the Boeing 737 MAX flies again. Airlines report growing passenger confidence, though some still request to fly on different aircraft. Each successful flight represents a small step toward rebuilding the trust that was lost. But the story of the 737 MAX is more than just a cautionary tale. It's a reminder that in business, as in aviation, there are no shortcuts to safety. Every decision, every compromise, every attempt to cut corners can have consequences that echo far beyond the bottom line. Here at the Market Window, we believe understanding these pivotal business moments helps us make better decisions in our own lives. What would you have done differently in Boeing's position? Join our community by subscribing to the Market Window, where we explore the stories behind the biggest business decisions of our time. Because sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the costliest mistakes.